If there was a general election tomorrow, who would you vote for? And it doesn't have to be one of the main two parties, by the way. But just looking at it, who would you vote for? It's interesting that Len McCluskey is warning the Labour Party after the anti-Semitism inquiry conclusions. And he's very forthright on his views, of course. He's a union man through and through. Last night warned Sir Keir Starmer that the move to suspend Jeremy Corbyn could spark chaos within Labour and consign it to defeat at the next election. I mean, this is extraordinary. So the fact that the man that lost them the general election and the one before that has been suspended could lose Labour the next election. But what that does do, it gives you a sort of a little insight into the kind of problems that the Labour Party have. There are two distinct parties going on here. There's the sort of Blairite wing of the Labour Party, governing straight down the middle, some would say, with a nod to some socialist values here and there. And then there's the kind of Corbynite party. And let's be honest, quite a lot of those old duffers in the Labour Party, and young ones too, for that matter, are quite relaxed wearing the Corbynite slippers. They enjoyed that because it fed into everything they believe. And I've said this till I'm blue in the face. If you want to be a left-wing voter, if you bat from the left, if you are intrinsically socialist in terms of your values, even Marxist in terms of your values, not a pejorative, just descriptive way of where some people are on the political spectrum, then of course part and parcel of your ideology is that you have to be in perpetual battle. You have to be, and being in opposition suits you just fine in a way. I think there was a sense amongst quite a lot of Corbyn supporters that winning elections is a kind of a bourgeois notion, not something we really want to do. We quite like the terrain of opposition because we can shout and we can snipe and we can point and we can critique the wicked Tories, the scum Tories. You saw that this week. And we can do that with absolute impunity when we're in opposition, if we get the big job running the place. But it's fascinating that Len McCluskey is saying that suspending Jeremy Corbyn could mean they lose the next election. Let me tell you something, Len and others. Suspending Jeremy Corbyn is the kind of thing that will give Keir Starmer the greatest chance of winning the next election. The picture that Labour tried to paint of this country, of this Dickensian closed-down country, this was pre-COVID, of course, where nobody had two halfpennies to rub together. Nobody ever went on holiday. Nobody had a job. Nobody ever had food. We're all queuing up in the streets, warming our hands on a burning barrel on street corners, wondering when the Great Depression will end. Hey, newsflash, Jeremy, there wasn't one. Most people were having a great time. Yes, there are people who aren't doing so well. It won't always be the same people. That changes. And naturally, any government will have a welfare system in place which they hope will address as many of those problems as possible. The idea that you would define the nation in this way is one of the reasons why Corbyn and his lot lost the election, because it wasn't recognised by people. That wasn't the life, the perpetual sniping from the wings about how bad stuff is and how awful stuff is. I think people wanted a bit of positivity in there somewhere, a sense that things could be good, and they weren't hearing this from Stalin's granddad standing there barking his points of order from the Labour box in the corner. It just didn't cut through. But he did do better than people thought he would do. And I'm thinking in particular when Theresa May was consigned to a minority government. That was, in part due to Jeremy Corbyn. But if you look at what's happened now, here we are in 2020. Corbyn is meant to be behind them. And do you know what? He kind of is, but not in the way they'd like to think it. Is this man still a backseat passenger, but driving away as much as he can? Because there are huge elements of the Labour Party that still support that Corbyn side. And Keir Starmer can pitch up as he did yesterday. And I believe him when he said, I'm sorry about what happened. It wasn't of his making. I'm a bit uncomfortable with the fact that he was kind of around in a senior front bench position, standing shoulder to shoulder with the very man that's just been suspended from the party, and nothing to see here, and the whole Shami Chakrabarti debacle. And giving interviews that everything, we're going to see our way through. Come on, Keir. You were part of Team Corbyn for 3 long years, and that's not going to go away like that. So he's got that to deal with, and there will be the squabbling. There'll be the sort of Diane Abbott, Len McCluskey kind of way of looking at things, with commentators thrown in, the boy Jones who doesn't know when he's Arthur or Martha when it comes to his politics in the Labour Party. Is he a Corbyn man? Is he a Starmer man? Oh no, it's Ed Miliband. No, Blair. No, let's go for somebody. No idea at all. And that's the kind of problem that Keir's... It's a mess. It's an absolute right royal mess over there at Labour HQ. If it was a house, it would be creaking. It would be condemned. And somebody would be writing the little note to say, if you don't sort this place out, we're going to have to knock it down or close it down, one of the two. So things are pretty rough over there at Labour HQ. There is one piece of consolation at Labour HQ. You know what that is? It's the fact that it's not Tory HQ. It's the one thing that they sit around and say, well, thank God we're not the Conservative Party, because, boy, right now have they got a crock of problems to deal with. So if there was a general election tomorrow, how would you vote? 0344 499 1000. For me, I think what is most fascinating are people who are either natural Conservatives or Conservative converts. The red wall is the obvious area to look at, where you dipped your toe into Conservative territory because you thought this has got to be worth a punt. It might have been just over Brexit. It could have been a number of things. You might have just liked Boris Johnson. Because you know what Johnson does really, really well, hence the Corbyn failure, is he's incredible at selling positivity. And his success to take him to number 10 is almost as simple as that. It's not really based on... I would challenge anyone if I'd say, what do you think is fundamentally Boris Johnson's ideology, politically and economically? What is his... Where do you think his roadmap takes him? I think most of us would think, I don't really... I'm thinking about... No, sorry, don't know. But what he does have is this blustering persona that kind of works. And we all remember the Independence Day speech. It was powerful. It doesn't matter which way you voted. I mean, lots of people looked at that and said, it's game over. Johnson has just done it for them. He's just got the Brexit thing over the line because the enthusiasm, the sense of this can be done, the yes we canness, to borrow the Obama mantra, very much form part of Team Johnson. He's one of those characters. I've met the man a couple of times, and people, that phrase, he's got something about him. He does, but right now, the whole thing I think is falling apart. The whole thing, so the wheels have absolutely come off from Team Johnson, and in a spectacular fashion. Look, I'm the first to say COVID is not of his making, and if you go to other countries, it's not a game of whataboutery, but you can't remove similarity and equivalence in this case. If you look at what's happening in France, where they're in a far worse position than us. Spain, in particular, in a far worse position than us. If you look at the lockdowns, the revolt, the sense of despair from the electorate in Italy, even in Germany, in Belgium, in Holland. So this is not a Boris thing, okay? It is for us, because he's our Prime Minister, and if you're the Labour Party, I suppose you stick the boot in. However, how he's dealt with this, how he dealt with it in the beginning, how he's currently dealing with it, I think it would be reasonably fair to say this fella is not covering himself in much glory right now. And then, of course, this is before he's even got to Brexit. Boy, I mean, you wouldn't want the gig for love nor money, would you? So you might see this as a battle between Keir and Boris, but if it was, which one right now would you be voting for if there was a general election tomorrow? 0344 499 1000 is where you'll find us. Fair to say, of course, you might have another suggestion, but it is in particular, if you voted that way. Since 1945, Labour have won 9 elections. That's including the Wilson minority government in the 74, I think it was. The Tories have won 12, and that includes May's minority government in 2007 and the coalition in 2010. So it's 12 plays 9 post-war for Tories over Labour in terms of running the country. If there was an election tomorrow, which way would you go? 0344 499 1000. Or would you go with somebody else? I think that's fascinating. But in particular, if you are one of those who dipped your toe in Conservative waters at the last election, Would you do the same again tomorrow? Or have you changed it? And if you did change your mind, would you change it in favour of Keir Starmer? Has Keir Starmer altered your perception significantly of Labour, despite the monumental problems they've got going on over there? So we often talk about the Americans. They've got a choice between Trump and Biden, two sex-offending millionaires. Wow, what a great choice. What have we? We've got Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer. It ain't looking too good at this end either, is it? General election tomorrow. Where are you going to put your cross?